encourage anyone that's watching this to notice over the next several of these episodes the various counsel that Shane pulls around him, and to think in terms of building your own pool of advisors from various disciplines that can give you wise counsel, that can help you become the best version of yourself personally and professionally. Because although you can go fast alone, you can go farther together.
Well, hello, everyone. This is the beginning of an interview series that I am having with key advisors and business partners to small businesses. I have determined, and Kyle is one of them, I have determined that it is important to have key advisors. Without counsel, plans fail. And with many advisors, they succeed. That is from Proverbs 15:22. And the longer I live and the longer I do CFO services and fractional CFO services, the more I realize, oh, there's something I don't know here. I need to find an advisor. So I find it highly valuable to connect the clients that I have, the people that I run into, to other people that have the knowledge and will help their businesses be in their personal lives and every part of their lives be more successful. So that's the point of this. So we're going through all kinds of them. Today we're talking, it's hard to just call Kyle a financial advisor because that is one of his many hats. And you'll see from the introduction that there are other things that he does. But that's really kind of the key role, and he just helps in so many different areas, personally and business, from that perspective. I'm going to be going through other type of advisors in future series, such as bankers, business brokers, other fractional executives, insurance, legal counsel, marketing. There's so many different people out there that are highly valuable for small businesses. So let me just go ahead and introduce you to Kyle. Who is he? So
Howdy.
I've known Kyle for 10 years. Kyle is a managing partner of Bluegrass Legacy Group, where he leads a team dedicated to helping families, businesses, and nonprofits define and live their legacies. With a background in economics from the University of Arlington, Kyle spent 15 years consulting with Fortune 500 companies in the finance, insurance, and defense sectors. In 2014, he transitioned to serving individual investors as a financial advisor. And in 2020, he founded Bluegrass Legacy Group to provide more personalized and responsive care to his clients. But beyond his professional endeavors, Kyle is a proud Texan, father of 6, grandfather of 2, an avid board and card game player, a soccer enthusiast, and along with his wife, Tammy, leads Equip Your Marriage, a ministry dedicated to empowering couples through books, workshops, and hands-on mentoring. But we're not done yet. Kyle is also an accomplished author, known for his book, Legends Don't Retire, and Neither Should You, which encourages leaders to live their legacy with purpose and intention. And in 2025, more is coming. He's releasing a new book called The Canteen. So please join me in welcoming Kyle Gabhart.
Oh, thank you.
So that is a lot. We've always laughed because I've gotten to know Kyle. We've actually go back, and we used to have a weekly group that met for a
Yeah.
while, kind of accountability, really just help each other work through any business and personal challenges. We still meet with a small group of us on
Twice a month.
twice a month. That's the plan, at least. And so yeah, it's been great. And I've just gotten to know his character, but he's like a man of many hats. And so it is fun to see that. But I want to focus on, really, you made a big switch in 2014 to focus on being a financial advisor. Now you have a company, you have a team around you, have other financial advisors, you have other people you work with. But why did you decide to pursue that role?
Yeah, I love that question, Shane, and thanks for having me on. Thanks for your friendship over the years and your leadership. You've given to me in a lot of ways, but introducing me to the full focus planner was definitely a significant turning point for me and getting more organized. So I'll always be grateful for that. Yay!
Still
And
using it after so many years.
you mentioned my team. If we were if everybody was on the call, they would all be able to hold up a planner. Every single person on the team
Wow.
has a full focus planner.
I feel
Yep,
like I'm the grandfather of the full focus
you
planner.
are. At least in our neck of the woods, you certainly are.
Right.
But yeah, I do appreciate the question. It was an interesting pivot because I'd really gotten quite comfortable in the corporate space. I could walk into essentially any room, and at least in the scope that I was dealing with, which was enterprise IT strategic planning, I was comfortable with any of the conversations. It didn't matter how bleeding edge it was. It didn't matter how complex the company was. You mentioned Fortune 500s, and that's absolutely true, but the reality is most of the clients were Fortune 100. It was really large enterprises, and I was again, able to execute it at a very high level, and that was great. But ultimately, as I reflected on it, I didn't feel satisfied that I was living out a purpose, that I was doing anything that really mattered. The things that I would do or that my teams would do, we'd squeeze another 1% here or 2% there, but I couldn't look at someone in the eyeballs and know for sure that I'd improve their life in any way. And so that combined with all the travel that was involved, because this was all pre-COVID when you had to travel to do this type of thing. I couldn't keep going. So a lot of prayer, a lot of journaling, soul searching, and ultimately decided to pursue what had been my passion for many years, personal finance, and to realize that I had the opportunity to be able to help others do that. And so that's why I made the pivot in 2014.
That's great. That's great. So, one of the things getting to know you better, I mean, because there are so many financial advisors. I mean, I would assume that, if you're a business owner that has been in business long enough, you've run across different types of financial advisors. So like I really and I've gotten to know you better because I know that you have a little bit of different approach on how you do that. So what really makes you and your firm add the most value to the clients that you work with?
Yeah, that's so important, Shane. And you're right. It really is a saturated industry, but I think a lot of industries are. And so you mentioned at the outset, as you were describing kind of the focus for this podcast or video cast, that you were going to have others along, and they run into similar problems, right? Whether it's the insurance space, whether it's the banking space, there's increasing saturation. And so, regardless of who it is, it's absolutely crucial that you get very clear on who you serve, because as it has been said many times, the riches are in the niches. And so, being able to be crystal clear about that is crucial. And in fact, you mentioned sort of loosely the group that we've been together a couple of times a month for, I think, going on 7, 8 years at this point. Early on, one of the things that we collaborated on to help one another with was to get much more clear about who we best serve. And
Mhm.
so, to specifically answer your question, we best serve business owners and real estate investors. We have a wide range of clients we serve, but we specialize in providing capabilities and solutions for them. And I will tell you that both of those categories, generally speaking, in my industry, we struggle with how to serve them because the traditional business model as a financial advisor is bring me a giant pile of money on day one. I'll manage that pool of dollars for you. And any of the advice I give you will be covered by the pool of dollars I'm managing. And that works great if someone has a giant pile of dollars day one. But in the
Mhm.
case of business owners and real estate investors, very often they've got their net worth tied up in some external asset, be it their business or be it a collection of properties. And so now you've got a barrier to the classic business model in terms of how do I serve this person? And
Yeah.
any financial advisor wants to be there at the end of the transaction, right? When you sell the apartment complex or sell the business, but being able to build the relationship prior to that and serve them and guide them and coach them, that's the thing that we've built a service model around that's really differentiated us.
Yeah. Yeah, you bring up an interesting point with business owners. I mean, they're really, I mean, I think if you think of somebody maybe that's not a business owner, uh, and there's a lot of value in the service you provide in that scenario, where
Sure.
they're building that wealth slowly through bonuses and paychecks and so forth. But business owners, they're just like, and many of them are entrepreneurial. It seems like they're multiple businesses, but even if you just have one business, I mean, you're like, that is your investment. That
Yeah.
is it. They're that's your retirement, that's going to be the the money at the end of the rainbow,
Yeah.
whatever. Um, so so that is an interesting. I run across that too a little bit just to make sure, are they personally handling things that would not effectively put all your eggs in one basket? Or, I mean, I guess what are some I'm just what are some common mistakes that you feel like growing businesses make regarding investing and working on their whole financial future?
Yeah. Oh, that's such an important question to ask. So, one truth that often gets missed is that wealth is built through concentration and it's protected through diversification. And that's important for a couple of reasons. Number one, your traditional approach as a financial advisor or wealth manager is the moment you get a dollar that you're going to manage, you immediately start diversifying it because of risk mitigation, because you don't want to be in the situation of, whoops, I invested in the quantum computing fad, and it turns out that I invested 8 years too early, and now that industry's tanking, right? You don't want to be in that position and then trying to explain that to a client. The trouble is, if you're still in the phase of accumulation, a diversification approach will necessarily slow down the rate of growth. And so you've got this quandary between, well, they still need to build money, they still need to build their nest egg, but if I build it in a way that's too aggressive, then we could run into a problem of having some really uncomfortable conversations. And and so that's just a general truth that exists within our industry. So it's important to recognize that. But then specifically as it relates to your question and entrepreneurs, I find sometimes that what happens is there is a tendency to diversify too quickly because we have a tendency to get bored or because maybe of fear of taking that next step in our business. And yet, I'll go back to the maxim I started with. Wealth is built through concentration. It's protected through diversification. And there's
Hmm.
so many times I've seen entrepreneurs that have gotten some traction and the next right step is to continue to double down on their business, either in terms
Hmm.
of blood, sweat, and tears or actual money. But they're kind of tired of it, or maybe they're a little bored by it, or maybe they're even just fearful of taking that next step. And they have a tendency to go, ooh, let me just go ahead and pull my chips off the table and let me go get one rental property and let me go invest in my buddy's business and let me start diversifying it because I finally have a little bit of cash instead
Mm.
of improving their flywheel and getting their existing business moving even more efficiently.
Yeah, that's interesting. So, well, how do you? I mean, I think the challenge will be knowing when do you diversify and when do you concentrate and double down, is what you just said. I mean, how do you determine when you make that switch or not? I mean, like for me, I mean, I kind of keep throwing a little bit of money in a retirement account and that,
Sure.
but I mean, obviously the majority of my money or whatever I'm left over in my business, I reinvest a ton,
Mhm.
and that's usually the right. But is it better to like say, okay, I'm going to take like 10% of this and put over here and invest and make sure, but is there some kind of thing like that you need to do?
No, that I mean that's a good point. I certainly would not want to dissuade people from having a portion of their cash flow that's going into other avenues to build up a solid base. And, you know, whether that's going into a retirement account, whether that's building up more cash reserves, whether it's, funding a life insurance policy, what have you, I think that's healthy. What I'm talking about more so is the business finally starts generating some really healthy cash flow, or
Hmm.
maybe there's a small liquidity event where a portion of something was sold off. And there's a tendency more often than not for people to very quickly go, aha, let me run and grab some other asset, let me buy into some other business, instead of really asking the perhaps more important question, which is, would it make more sense for me to reinvest in this?
Hmm.
Or maybe it's even just a bandwidth thing. So they get the business to where it's more or less running automatically, and their instinct typically is, okay, let me go start another thing, when it
Right.
might be that what they need to do is roll up their sleeves. And even though it's running more or less automatically, maybe they need to stretch that business to the next level. Maybe they
Yeah.
need to add the next level of service or package or offering on that existing business rather than
Yeah.
having to start something completely new from scratch.
Yeah, yeah, okay. And I see like two things we're doing here, and that's really important and that's probably biggest reason why I like talking with you about this because yeah, there's just the normal thing. Oh, you want to set up a 401k, you want some tax
Yeah.
benefits, you need to put some money over here into retirement because you get the deductions and yeah, it build there, that's just kind of like low hanging fruit,
Yes.
but and if you're not doing that, yeah, talk about doing that because
Yep.
there's tremendous tax benefits for these types of things for
That's right.
small business owners. But the the issue, or probably where the bigger value, especially in the value of your business, because that's what you're investing in is an increased value of the business. Maybe you want to sell it one day, or it's sellable, or whatever. You want
Mhm.
it to go up in value, and you investing in the business itself, the flywheel, the processes, the people, the sales and marketing, whatever you need to do can make a huge difference. And I think you mentioned that you kind of touched on something because I think business owners tend to can get bored. You can get
Mhm.
bored, because I don't know. I mean, like you've been doing your business since 2014, and so that's what 11 years at the
Yep.
time of this video, 11 years, and then I've been doing my business for 9 years. So how do you what kind of keeps you motivated in your daily work? What keeps you motivated and to kind of keep going and doing all these things?
Yeah, that's such a such sticky question for me, because I've had to really reevaluate that over the past year, because 6, 7 months ago we became empty nesters. And so for the longest time, what kept me motivated was the fact that there were 6 kiddos and a wife that, were really interested in eating and doing things and having shelter and all of that. And, you then kind of get to a point of like, oh, wait, now they're up and out, and maybe not 100% fully independent, but not dependent on a daily basis in the way that they used to be. And you kind of reach this existential question of like, so where am I deriving my purpose? What is my motivation? What am I pursuing? And to be honest, I'm still sorting that out. But I would say for the time being, at least in my case, it helps that, unlike my corporate career, I do get the opportunity on a daily basis to see the direct impact I'm making in people's lives. And that's so gratifying to know that I'm serving them in that way. And the fact that I can get compensated well for doing that is just such a blessing.
Yeah, yeah. I was on a meeting earlier this week and realized, financial people, we have and maybe more so, well, I think both of us, but in different ways. But because finances and being able to business owners to provide for their family, to provide for their employees, I mean, they're providing financially for a lot of people. And
Hmm.
along with that, making an impact in the community, whatever their product or service is. But down deep, you're providing a lot of peace. And I mean, you could be indirectly saving marriages. I mean, well, you actually are saving marriages
Or
directly.
directly.
You do have a direct equip your marriage ministry, but
I even
even
have
just
employees that help
indirectly.
do our marriage stuff.
Yeah, I
So,
know, I know. That's funny, but like, yeah, or just their lives in general. I mean,
yeah.
because if you can put them on a better trajectory for
Mhm.
their business, which is obviously if you're a business owner, what your business is doing is affecting your personal. I mean, that you
Yeah.
can't really, we break it apart to some degree for tax purposes and everything, but you take distributions, that is your livelihood. So if
Mhm.
and that's hugely important for sending your kids to college, for you're obviously wanting to travel, whatever your goals are. So it's
Sure.
there's so many parts where indirectly you are affecting people out there. And so that's motivating when I think that's motivating when you put it that perspective. So, well, that's great. I wanted to quickly shift gears because one of the things that what makes Kyle special is like, I mean, it's just like you have a game back there behind you that you created that, I mean, like, was it Arctic
Arctic
Scavengers? Is that what
Scavengers,
Arctic
yeah.
Scavengers? I mean, like,
Yep.
can you go on Amazon and get that?
You can, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So Kyle's created a game, which I think it's cards, right? And rolls and
Yeah,
cards.
that's right.
And then you've got the ministry and you've got books. I think you even have a marriage book too, which we didn't even
Yep.
mention. And then you've got
Mhm.
Legends Don't Retire book. And now you have this new book, The
Yeah.
Canteen.
Yep.
So tell us a little bit about that book because it's coming out this year
Uh,
sometime, right?
Yeah, it is. It is. I'm super excited about it, Shane. There's a piece of me in every project I've ever done, whether it was a post-apocalyptic ice age card game or whether it was the book that's over my shoulder, Legends Don't Retire, about finance and purpose and legacy. But I will tell you that this book is special in a way that none of the others have been because it's been percolating for 25, 26 years. It chronicles my time in Africa when I was a young man at the age of 19. I spent a month between Zimbabwe and South Africa. In Zimbabwe, I was in the bush. I was hiking into remote villages with a native translator. His name was Peter. He was 3 years older than me, so he was 22. We're both old men now in our 40s, and I still stay in touch with Peter. But I kept a journal every single day that I was there. I took photos while I was there. And when I say I took photos, just depending on the age of the viewers, let me explain something. When I came back from Africa, I went to Eckerd's. I dropped the
Oh my
film off.
goodness. Eckerd's. Haven't
I
heard that
came
name
back
in a while.
I came back a couple days later and the photos were ready and they physically handed them to me.
Are those photos yellow now? And like, are they black and
Uh,
white or they color?
Right? Yeah, a little bit, a little bit. And quite frankly, on some of the photos, they're blurry. On some of the photos, my finger was on the lens. It was a different era. But the book is all about lessons that I learned while I was there, things the Lord showed me, ways that I was stretched and that I grew. And interwoven throughout the book are journal entries and photos describing my time there. And so it's called the Canteen because without spoiling it, there was a really pivotal moment on the side of a small mountain where I was down to just one drop of water left in my canteen. And I
Mm,
genuinely thought, I guess I'm going to die here in the wilderness. Like, I think that's what's going to happen. And so I
uh,
really had a crisis, both physically as well as spiritually, as to whether I was going to rely on myself, clutch that canteen, and save myself with that one drop of water, or was I going to find deeper fulfillment in leaning on and relying on the Lord?
yeah. Is this like in a story format? Like it goes chronologically or over the journey or
Yeah,
how
good question. It goes thematically. So there's
thematically?
one chapter entirely on the subject of food. There's
Mm,
another chapter on the subject of time. And so the food is treated very differently there. Time is treated very differently there. They have a
right.
bus schedule. And we rode the bus. We also hiked. We also hitchhiked and traveled by train at one point. But there is a bus schedule. And just to give you a sense, they say that the bus schedule runs on Africa time. And so it might indicate that the bus is arriving at 9 o'clock in the morning. And you might get there at 8:45 knowing that you want to make sure not to miss the bus. And it is not outrageous for the bus to show up at 11:30.
Wow. So they're not off by 15 minutes. That's wow. I guess there's not a second bus planning on coming that day. And it's like,
Yeah, and maybe there is, and maybe it shows up at 4.
all right. Or like the first bus is at 11:30 and the second one's 11:45.
It could be
Okay,
like it is anyone's guess. And so the
all right, that's
perspective
great.
on time,
That's great.
perspective on so many things really stretched me.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I've carried those lessons with me for 26 years.
Yeah, that's great. I'm excited to read that book. Is there like a release date or do we know?
Yeah, so I should have physical books in hand by March of this year that I can start using for promotion and for events and so forth. The official release date is in August, and it'll go out to wherever books are sold. It'll be on Amazon, it'll be on Barnes and Noble, it'll be on physical bookshelves in bookstores. Yeah, a lot of places.
And this is different than some of your other books. You do it to like a regular publisher or a
Correct. That's
larger
right.
publisher, and so yeah, it'll be interesting to see how well that does. But I mean, on top of that, just be able to hear some of the stories, what you learned, and how you now apply that even now in your life or reflect on that is great. Well,
Absolutely.
I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up, but I mean, you have any kind of closing thoughts or anything else you think that you want to share with anybody with us?
I would just, applaud you for putting this together and for the way that you invest in people, and encourage anyone that's watching this to notice over the next several of these episodes the various counsel that Shane pulls around him, and to think in terms of building your own pool of advisors from various disciplines that can give you wise counsel, that can help you become the best version of yourself personally and professionally. Because although you can go fast alone, you can go farther together.
Yes, totally agree. Well, anyway, this has been a great interview, conversation, whatever you want to call it, here with Kyle. I think there's some great advice here that we all need to listen to and think about. And so we'll just end this time. But yeah, so from a fractional CFO standpoint, I find it highly valuable once again to have these advisors. One of the things that in just looking at people's forecasts and understanding where they're headed, there's so many different items that they need to really figure out, from their sales, from their expenses, from their profit, from their personal life. And so all of that stuff we try to help business owners be successful in. And I plug in people like Kyle to, fill many gaps that are in there in the business. So anyway, it's a great time with you, Kyle. So
Enjoyed it.
good talking with you. Have a
Thanks,
great
Shane.
one.